Hey everybody, welcome back to Highly Disputed, the Lloyd and Liam NFL show. With me as always is Lloyd and Liam, and then joining us once again is our numbers analyst, Seamus. Gentlemen, how are we
Shame indeed.
feeling? How are we feeling, after that last Halloween broadcast? Are we all nice and spooked and ready for Thanksgiving?
Very spooked.
Bring me the spooky Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Didn't watch the last broadcast.
Yeah,
I don't subscribe.
Lloyd
We're talking
was
about the NBA draft today, right?
Lloyd was so kind as to not be with us last week because he had actual real work to do. What kind of nonsense is that? So, I guess we will open up as we did last week by recapping our hot takes from the week. I am going to open up by just saying I apologize for my atrocious hot take of Ben DiNucci completely showing up against the Eagles. I mean, sometimes.
He showed up. He was a person in the game.
Yeah, exactly. I said he was going to go off. I meant like he was going to go off track from what the Cowboys want from him. So I was accurate if you go off that, but beyond that, I could not have been more wrong. Seamus, let's talk about what your hot take was and how you think that went.
I mean, so my hot take was that Justin Fields would rise as the number one quarterback in NFL mock drafts, and I feel pretty good about that considering Clemson still won with a freshman, Trevor Lawrence. Maybe not as important as you think to Clemson's success. Justin Fields and Ohio State continue to dominate, although the Big Ten is kind of a little bit up in the air because COVID outbreak with Wisconsin might make them ineligible, and so we might have a weird season there. But I've been seeing, Todd McShay even pointed out earlier this week that it's a pretty legitimate race now between Fields and Lawrence for that number one pick in some teams' eyes.
So
And
Ohio State doesn't have talent? Like what?
on offense,
Also, if watching that Penn State game, I don't think Penn State's very good. I don't think Ohio State's played anybody yet. Penn State shouldn't be ranked.
well, Ohio State's not going to play anybody is sort of the issue. But this isn't a college podcast. But yeah, I feel pretty good. I'll take like a 25-50% win on that. I guess really the only way I'll ever know is when Mel and Todd are arguing about it like the night of the draft in April. So I'll keep it in the ballpark this week.
Don't worry, the Jets will take whoever the wrong one of those guys is. You don't have to worry about that. The Jets hot takes are never very good. So.
Let's be honest though, like tank for Trevor, lose for Lawrence, those sound cool. What are you gonna say for the other guy? Like nothing sounds.
Fade for Fields.
Yeah,
Fail.
Failure Fields. All right, Liam, how'd last week go for you?
I think I got the hottest of hot takes completely correct. I predicted that Dalvin Cook and the Minnesota Vikings were going to absolutely mess up the Packers. He had basically all of their points, 47.6 fantasy points, a Jamal Charles sized game, sitting on my couch watching it. I absolutely loved it. It's not surprising though. The Packers have a terrible run defense, and he's a really good running back, probably in the running for one of the best in the league, barring the injury that he had. So it's not surprising when you hear it, but the fact that they won purely off his shoulders is pretty incredible.
Put the team on his back.
Yep.
That's right.
That was definitely something. Lloyd, I know what some people think was a failure on your end, you think was a correct take. So let's talk about your take.
Let me say two things. I guess technically mine is 50-50 there. Like look at his line; it wasn't very good. I'll give him credit though. That one touchdown in the tight window, that was they have this like weird statistic on ESPN that was like the most like accurate throw or something. I can't even. I don't know. I'm not a numbers guy. I don't do the analytics, but let the record show, in our group me, I did say the Eagles would win by 2 scores. That did happen too.
But that wasn't your hot take on air. Like you could just. Be
I wasn't
saying
on
that.
air last. I wasn't on air last week.
For anyone who doesn't remember, he Lloyd predicted 2 weeks ago that Tua in his first start would be replaced by Ryan Fitzpatrick, and not because of his play, because he would be unable to finish the game.
I'm more of a Talia guy, anyways. give me Talia. Let's just talk about college.
Seamus, Liam, since you guys were also on last week, either one of you want to try and recap what Justin's was last week?
I don't even remember what Justin's was.
I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of passing it on to you. I was hoping you guys would remember.
No,
Nice
try.
try.
It's probably right.
Did he say that the Bengals would beat the Titans?
Yeah, it was that Joey Covers was gonna beat the Titans, which absolutely did happen. Tennessee, are they good?
We'll get there.
Derrick Henry's still good.
Yes, Derrick Henry, good at football.
Still leading the league in rushing, even though they played like 2 last weeks. I don't know what's good there, but
okay. So let's move on to our first mode of action. I like to start off by talking about probably what the game of the week was the week prior, and arguably I would call that the Steelers-Ravens game. AFC North, undefeated versus 1 loss. I think it was 6-0 versus 5-1 if I remember correctly, and now Steelers prevailed, and now there was some questions about Lamar Jackson coming in. Seamus, do we still have those same questions about Lamar Jackson coming out of that game?
Yeah, I think we do. You can argue if you're a Baltimore fan that it came down to one play, but on that final play, I think really highlights a lot of what has seemed to be Lamar's limitations so far this year, which is that he kind of goes to that first read in big situations, and even if it's not all the way there, he's just going to take it. He leads the receiver into that single high safety look with Minka with the coverage underneath, and it's a pretty clear bracket situation. And I mean, his receiver gets absolutely murdered by Fitzpatrick on that last play, breaking it up. And I think that kind of highlights what has seemed to be the limitation for Lamar this year, which is that the passing efficiency and accuracy isn't really there. I know they ran all over Pittsburgh, but the running efficiency really hasn't been there much of this year. And it's not just a raw numbers regression for Lamar, which there has been, but I think from an efficiency perspective is really where, I think you see some of the limitations of that team, where when they don't have a big lead, it's hard for them to play from behind, or even in close games it seems like.
And I was just gonna say I don't think it's getting any easier now that Ronnie Staley's out. But what were you gonna say, Lloyd?
Yeah.
Also, no Marshall Yanda this year. I mean, I think the big issue he's having is he doesn't have the guys to throw to downfield, and he's getting so much pressure, especially with the Steelers, with all those guys coming in quick on him. He's forced to take the quick check down. I don't think it's really so much Lamar. I think he's still just, freak talent. But, you look at that one fumble, what else is he going to do? Nobody's open. He goes, on the 4-2 or whatever. You have to try to extend the play. The first pick he had, that was pretty bad. And you got to respect the guy that he goes up in front of the media and says it's his fault. But I don't know.
We got our first question already on the topic, and that is that have teams figured out Lamar Jackson the same way teams have figured out Michael Vick? Liam, what do you think about that?
I think the good teams have figured him out. I don't, he's like 0-3 versus teams with winning records, but he still likes to beat up on the teams with bad records. So he's in that middle there. I kind of feel like his stats and his win percentage were a little overinflated last year, considering how bad that division was last year as compared to this year. The Steelers were on like their 5th quarterback. The Bengals didn't have Joey Burrows. The Browns were being the Browns still a little bit last year. Like, when I look at his progression from last year to this year, I just kind of think that they're playing better teams and people have seen more of his style of play. And so, yeah, I think people are figuring him out a little bit.
They lost by 3 points. And the only 2 teams they lost to are the only 2 teams I think are really significantly better than them. I mean, the Chiefs and the Steelers. But I agree. I think he definitely is. You can't deny he's slowing down looking at his numbers, but I still love Lamar.
I think the regression from Mark Ingram to running the ball this year has been a big reason why they've struggled. Last year on first down with Mark Ingram, they were getting 5-6 yards a carry. I think the number was 5.8 yards a carry on first down. And now this year you're looking at something, I think it's closer to like 3.1, 2.8, something in that range, where all of a sudden now instead of 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, where you got a lot more options, you're putting Lamar in a lot more obvious passing situations where if you're a defense like Pittsburgh that likes to blitz in obvious passing situations, it's a lot easier to tell what Baltimore's doing. And that's where like that decreased efficiency as an offense from an offense as a whole is really coming from, I think.
He's also so young still, though. People act like he's been in the league for like 10 years. This is year 3?
Like 2.5, not even, because he only started.
The one big positive, I mean, granted, Humphrey goes down with COVID, Stanley got hurt, all these other things, but J.K. Dobbins was a monster.
Yeah, he looked good.
225 yards for all their running backs. I mean, you're very rarely are you going to lose with that. They did, but
I guess the question then becomes how much of this rests on the Ravens not showing up and how much of this game came to the Steelers having the right game plan, because they are 7-0, and I don't think, no one expected them to be bad coming into this year, but I don't think anyone would suspect that the Steelers were the one undefeated team by week 8.
I think Tomlin deserves coach of the year just every year. Just give it to him every year. He is the LeBron James of the coaching in the NFL right now. Every year he finds a way to be good. He's just, it's nuts.
This one guy from Canada named Chase Claypool is all of a sudden a household name because of his role in the Steelers offense, and no one expected anything from him at this point.
Ben Roethlisberger, granted, he wasn't very good that first half. You look at his numbers for the overall for the season, he's been pretty damn good for somebody coming off that kind of injury. Like, he's definitely comeback player of the year award
Absolutely
worthy, I'd say.
I think the only thing you have to worry about with Ben ever is like when he turns the ball over, it seems to come in clusters where he'll go 2 or 3 games without having like a ton of, maybe he'll throw a tip ball pick or something, but then you'll have games like that second half against Tennessee where he throws 3 interceptions in a half, and it's like, oh no!
He looked pretty good that second half against the Ravens. Like when he pump faked the one guy, like the guy drew in. I can't really explain the play very well, but he hit
that's what I think you always worry about with Ben is sort of the like his bad spurts come in like a big cluster. He explodes for bad plays, and like you just gotta hope if you're a Steelers fan that it doesn't rear its head at like in the wrong game.
Yeah, but you look at the year before that, they were 8-8 with Duck Hodgins. You still got a Hall of Famer who makes Hall of Fame decisions. Maybe he doesn't have the talent he did 10 years ago, or the strengths or the speed, but all they need is a game manager, and that's what you're gonna get with him.
They play that second place schedule too, so they don't play the Chiefs. They don't play. They don't get Houston, but they basically avoid some tough games. I think the only 2 games left on their schedule that they could really lose are Buffalo and maybe the Baltimore Thanksgiving game if Lamar plays better and Baltimore goes in with a more complete game plan.
They will. They'll drop one divisional game, I think. I think it's just bound to happen.
All right, well, not that we don't love talking about, the potential game of the week, but we probably should start moving on here. If anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the Baltimore Steelers rivalry moving forward, feel free to drop something in the chat. All right, moving on, we have, the one that's near and dear to 3 of our hearts, not as much Lloyd. Liam, what are your impressions after the Bills-Pats game?
Man, I almost had to change my pants. Holy cow. That was a crazy game. Watching it, when you're a Bills fan and you watch the Patriots going down the field in like a 2-minute drill. You know, I don't know who said it, but like somebody just said Tom Brady wouldn't make that mistake. You know, he would have, you know, slid, he would have done something different. Tom Brady doesn't make those mistakes. So, I mean, that's just the sort of thing you can tell they're missing him bad. I don't know if they're going to bench him. Like, that's his games these past couple weeks have been benchable games. And I don't think they have the heart to bench him because I don't think anybody behind him is all that much better. Like, Stidham didn't look all that good. Do they even still have Hoyer? Like, is Hoyer still up? I mean, I don't. They're bad this year. I mean, they ran out of money. They ran out of picks. They had the greatest quarterback of all time leave. So, I mean, yeah, they're going to have a down year. But the Bills, they looked okay. We played to our competition. We won another game. I'm nervous going into Seattle.
Lloyd, I know you're one of Cam Newton's staunchest defenders moving into this year. How do you think about Cam Newton moving forward?
I mean, it's better than it's better than last week. I do think like some of the things that are being understated are how depleted that team is, and they had a COVID outbreak. They still missed those 2 weeks. I mean, yeah, they're 2-5. I don't know. I think my answer is I don't know. I don't really know if he's gonna be a starting quarterback in the NFL next year, but I think he's at least earned the right to keep starting for them. He's definitely the best quarterback who went to Auburn on that team.
Seamus, who meant more to the Patriots, Brady or Belichick?
Well, I think like who was it? Might have been Kevin Clark at the Ringer or Nora Princiati at the Ringer. One of those two mentioned that it seems like a great quarterback can overcome a lot of things, and a great coach can overcome everything except when they don't have a great quarterback. So I think, you know, maybe of the success over the whole 20 years, you can give more to Brady. But I think in some of those game-by-game basis, like, for example, looking at, like, the Rams Super Bowl game, like, I think a lot of the credit in some of those one-off, those big high-leverage one-off games goes to Belichick. But Brady maybe more for being the steadying hand, you know, with the subtle adjustments in-game over 20 years.
Yeah, and, well, if there's anything, I mean, it's... I remember, you know, we were making those arguments about Brady being a system QB at one point, but at the very least, you can tell that, you know, Brady was a monumental piece to that, given how he's doing in Tampa Bay, just off of, you know, a few months of working with those guys, learning that scheme, compared to 20 years of the same scheme in New England.
Well, I think the biggest concern coming out of that game, though, is what Liam brought up earlier, which is ultimately that Buffalo still doesn't look that good. I get that they ran the ball better, and I get that that supposedly it was really windy, and I know we didn't ask a lot of Josh, but I mean that pick he threw, you know. I know the three of us, or the four of us, were arguing about it, with Tig saying it's his bad. That looked like a classic back shoulder throw that Josh threw literally 5 feet to the inside technique. And it's like, if he's going to have, like, just little mistakes like that are, you know, that you can pick up in real time on the broadcast in big games, it's like, come on, man, Buffalo wants to love you so bad, and you just every time I think you're going to do something good, you just put like this little worry seed in the back of my head that I'm like, oh man, would it be better to go out and like go get Matt Ryan or go get someone who's more steady?
No. I think it's the defense for the Bills right now. I think Josh is doing his job. I mean, one pick, you know, he went through the first 5 games almost with basically no picks, except for that stupid one with Croft. Like, he was doing well, and the Patriots know how to throw the schemes at him. I don't know what shoulder that was supposed to be on, but I mean, the defense has got to start getting their own picks. I mean, we can't be losing the turnover battle just because of one pick. We got to be getting our own.
Turnovers are killer. But turnovers are a historically not sticky stat, and most people regress towards some level of like mean with that. And Buffalo would be your like positive regression turnover team, considering I think they've only had they've only forced 4 turnovers through their first 8 games, which I think we're last in the NFL in turnovers. It's also Cincinnati is last.
I think if you're a quarterback, though, and you go and play the Patriots, no matter how depleted they are, I mean, Belichick is more a defensive guy than an offensive guy, right? Like, so, you know, they're going to have adjustments for you. They're going to catch you on a bad decision. I think I agree with Liam. I would be more concerned with the defense.
And then you, of course, you look at the fact, I know, Seamus, we were talking about it before, how the Patriots brought everything for this game. This was the game that they pulled out all their stops because they didn't want to concede the AFC East to the Bills. So
Yeah,
you can take that for what it's worth.
Kind of over now, but
so I guess just as a last little point on the Bills, we have one more question on what do you contribute to the collapse of the Bills' defense from last year? Phillips?
Starla Pulele opting out, I think, is a big deal. And Milano and Edmonds, some combination of regression and injury for both of them. I think they both played pretty much since week 1 injured. But there's no doubt that like the middle of that defense is where the problem is right now.
Yeah.
And Oliver isn't playing that great either.
And I think we're really missing Lorenzo Alexander right about now.
Yeah,
They're
just not scary.
The last 2 weeks too.
There's nothing scary about them. You know, last year, you know, nobody wanted to play the Bills' defense. The Bills' defense was stopping the Cleveland Browns like 7 times on the 1-yard line. Now, every time I see them, you know, another team in the red zone, I'm like, oh, well, hopefully Josh gets the ball back quickly and scores a touchdown. Like, and nobody's afraid of these guys.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it is Tre'Davious White needs to go on Wild and Out again. That'll bring the team morale. If you haven't seen that, look it up. The dude is actually hilarious.
I've seen that clip. I like Trey on Wild and Out.
I've seen Lloyd on Wild and Out. I think
Pete Davidson of our time.
I think he lost. I don't know what the score was.
All right.
It can't be my idol, dude.
Anybody got any last second comments on the Bills and Patriots other than, you know, hopefully it's our first AFC East title since '95? Good. All right. So not necessarily a game of the week entry, but I just had to do it. Let's talk Bucks Giants. The Giants still seem to be the thorn in Tom Brady's side. Lloyd, what was that? Like, why? How come the Giants were able to actually keep it close there?
That's what the Giants have been doing all season. They look okay. You think, oh, maybe they'll do something, and then you just get those pivotal Daniel Jones turnovers in the second half. I think he's had in his 19 games he's played or whatever, they said he's had like 15 turnovers. Or maybe
no, he's averaging at least a turnover a game.
Yeah,
I think
it's at least one.
I think it's like very neglected that the Giants, you know, they're not maybe not as bad as the Jets, but like they could very well take a quarterback next year too. Like Tom Brady, I mean, I think it was a pretty foregone conclusion they were going to win.
I think the Giants have the worst roster outside of the Jets in the NFL now, probably too, with Saquon being injured. I think that team is devoid of talent.
I think they would be better with Fields. They would definitely be better with Fields.
Oh yeah, I think they're better with Trey Lance too. You know,
somehow every Jason Garrett team just looks the exact same, no matter who he's got on the team. It's like
it's the most.
I feel like I'm watching. You know, even the fact that the colors are close, I'm like, am I watching the Cowboys right now?
It's the most uninspired offense. Like it is like if you were calling the Madden plays, it's halfback dive, halfback blast, hooks.
It's like guys on the team like trying to battle for a contract, but also like get traded kind of. They're like, how do I stay healthy but also make a name for myself?
It's funny
And then
because
you got Daniel Jones. Just when's the worst possible time to turn the ball over? All right. we're in the red zone. All right, you go.
it's funny because like you look at the way that the Giants are running things week to week, and it almost feels like what the Bills used to look like, in that they'd be 2-run plays on first and second down because of course what else would you do, and then you're gonna do a route that's going to be just short of the sticks, but that's okay because you're going to catch it and then continue to go past the sticks, and in which case it never happens that way. And it's just I feel for Giants fans just because it's never a fun time when that's the offense you have to look forward
I got
to.
a fun stat for you.
I
Daniel
feel for what's his name? Who's that linebacker who plays like 99% of the snaps?
Blake Martinez.
I feel for Martinez. He has to be out there the whole damn game. He doesn't take any steps off.
I got a fun stat for you guys. On third down average this year, Daniel Jones is averaging -0.2 air yards on third down passes this year. He is second worst in the NFL. He is tied for second worst with Drew Brees for average third down air yards, and worse than Cam Newton. Cam Newton is by far the worst quarterback in the league this year on average air yards on third down. -4 yards air yards, which means he's basically either throwing backwards. He's throwing backwards screens, taking sacks, or throwing incomplete a lot.
He'll fix it. He gets to play the Jets this week.
Don't be so sure.
If the Jets are going to win a game, this might be it.
No.
Oh.
This is their only chance. This is the only chance the Jets have.
Bill Belichick has way too much pride.
He wasted all of his pride trying to beat the Bills.
Yeah, Bill's gonna play quarterback for this game. He's gonna say, you know what, just let me do it. I can check it down. I can check it down 20 times.
Yeah, I can make those. Cam, I can make those passes. You take a seat.
Sleeveless Bill Belichick's gonna come out.
So, Tom is at the helm of a 6-2 team. Like,
Tom Meehan?
not yeah.
Whistle me in.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, Tampa Brady. How we like are they gonna make a run? I know we talked about this briefly last year, but even in a game that looked like there was no chance in hell they win this game, especially the way the Giants were driving at the end, they squeaked it out, like, pass interference or not, but that's a story for another day. I don't know. Lloyd, I know you have a huge opinion of Tom Brady. Is he capable of taking this team deep?
I think this week's a huge litmus test. I mean, you lost to Breeze game 1 of the season. You got some weapons now. People are healthy. You can't really, you had some time to build some chemistry. But I really don't know. I don't think they are. I still wouldn't give them the favorites for that side. I mean, it's close. It's close. I think they definitely will make a playoff run, but I also couldn't really tell you who I think is going to beat them right now. That's the hard part.
Liam, what's are the Bucks gonna beat the Saints this week? Hold on, I got it. His Alex redeemed a change the hat, so I need to go put some random hat on. So talk amongst yourselves while I go get a freaking hot dog and put a wiener on my head.
Now we're gonna get demonetized for that.
Crap.
I honestly, I'm really interested to see what Antonio Brown can do. Is he a difference maker on this team? Because a team with Tom Brady throwing it the way he's throwing it now, Gronkowski, no matter what shape you think he's in, and Antonio Brown, and Leonard Fournette, that's a good. I mean, just when you say it, that's a championship level offense.
How
And
many players
apparently
on
their
that
defense
Bucks
is
team?
outplaying them. So I mean, on paper, that's a good sounding team. Whether they can get the cohesiveness, whether Antonio Brown gets arrested for doing something ridiculous that I can't wait to hear about. Like I think ESPN might be paying him to do ridiculous things just so that they can do stories about it.
Hey
But
man, Tony Robbins turned his life around supposedly.
yeah,
How many Bucks players have Madden covers now? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I mean, I think Bruce Arians had
Brady.
one.
Brady, and who's the other guy?
Brady, Gronk, Brown.
Brown.
Brady, Gronk, and Brown all have one.
Fournette's got like an alternative one, maybe. The like
Ronald
special
Jones maybe one day.
early release. Yeah, who
Oh,
knows? But
Ronald Jones, 2K22.
I think if Antonio Brown plays as well as he did when he was in Pittsburgh, I think that's a championship team right there.
I think the issue Tampa always has that rears its ugly head is like their lack of discipline, seemingly. Which is like, you know, the you saw it rear its head a little bit against the Giants. Dumb penalties, dumb drops. You know, the things Tom Brady really doesn't tolerate. I think it's sort of ingrained in a Bruce Arians team that there is like some room for some of that volatility. And that's always something I do want to worry about with them. I think that's the only thing that really holds them back offensively.
All right. Last comments, questions, concerns regarding the Bucks. Well,
When's Antonio Brown gonna drop his next album?
I mean,
That's what I'm here for.
It's probably gonna be on Wild 'N Out.
It's probably. I bet it's gonna be one hot dog of an album.
His SoundCloud is dope.
All right. So, Saints and Bears, mainly on here because of the extra storyline of some guy thinking it was a good idea to punch another guy through a helmet. Seamus, how do you think his fists are feeling right about now?
Oh my! What a dumb decision! You see guys do this all the time, where they're like, "I'm gonna punch a dude with like my bare hand, like I'm gonna punch a helmet." It's like when guys like try to punch a hole through drywall when they're mad in like movies. It's like, what are you doing? Why?
The epitome of white guy.
I think it was a very heat of the moment thing, and I think the reality of that though is you spit on me during this pandemic, like I'm probably gonna lose it too. Like I might do something dumb, like punch someone in the helmet too. Those guys have families, and you could be the causing an outbreak.
That's fair.
It's sad to say, but like spitting is as bad as a lot of things now to get a fight started.
I like how confused the guy who got punched was after the first swing. He kind of just like he gets hit and then he kind of just like, what? Like he's so confused. He's confused as I am, and like I'm just watching it and I'm like what's going on? You'd really think
Like it goes back for seconds.
Yeah, there's
really
nobody in the
don't
stands, dude. Like, there's nobody in the stands. Like, it's so quiet. You'd think you'd be able to figure out exactly what happens right when it happens, and I'm still just watching it like, I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, if you really wanted to get after him, you would have pinned him to the ground and COVID swabbed him. That would have been most all the way to the brain.
I think the Bears need to start playing two quarterbacks every play. Mitch and Nick out there every single play because neither of them is very good. And I've heard like from like reading these like stories about high school teams. There are high school teams now that are playing with like two quarterbacks on the field the whole time in the backfield, and like they both will do the clap, they'll both call the count, and it's only like the center only knows, and only the center knows which one is getting them, and the other quarterback knows which one's getting the ball. I don't know. Let's get creative here, Matt Nagy. Save your job. You're gonna get fired if either Nick or Mick Trubisky don't work out and you don't win a playoff game. You're gonna get fired.
Isn't it funny how they are still 5-3 and yet they are the most like uninspiring team I feel in the entire league?
They're 26th in DVOA at 5-3. They're like the Bills from last year, where like Football Outsiders and PFF just were like, this Bills team sucks, but they're 6-2.
Yeah, we know that. We know that well.
Nick
Bills
Foles
didn't
just
win
needs
a
it to be
shot.
playoff time, you know. That'll put on his big boy pants.
Well, Nick Foles is not showing the same flair that he had in Philadelphia yet. He did for one game, but that's about it thus far. And wasn't even a game that he started.
I can relate to Nick Foles. You know, I go to work sometimes. I'm like, wow, I should have been fired a long time ago. Let's see how far this goes.
Oh man, I don't know what to add to that. So, did anyone catch? It was a random play in the second half. Drew Brees tried throwing a downfield pass. It was like maybe 18 yards, an 18-yard pass, and he like wound up completely, and it was still 3-4 yards short, and the guy had to like dive for it and wound up incomplete. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know, I've thrown the pool noodle, you know, analogy out there before, but holy hell, this guy.
I thought you were a Drew Brees guy. That was like your go-to fantasy quarterback for
always.
a couple of years.
I think the last 4 years I've had Drew Brees as my quarterback, but this year it's just like, oh man. Like I don't even know what to say anymore. Like is he?
Well, I think it was hidden for a little bit because Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are kind of known for yards after the catch. So when they end up picking up an extra 6 or 7 yards after they catch it, in your mind you're kind of like, oh well, you know, 20 yards. All right, how about that? But when you actually see him throw it to somebody like Lattimore, who just gets tackled immediately, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's funny
I mean, Drew
because
Brees,
Didn't he have it wasn't a shoulder injury like 2004? Like that was 16 years ago.
yeah, let's not
So,
forget
like,
the
it
compound
makes
dislocation. The compound dislocation. Oh, I can't lower my arm. It's just stuck here.
I mean, Drew Brees is literally averaging like a yard and a half less than the next closest person in air yards this year of all qualifying quarterbacks. Like, he is by far throwing the ball the shortest through the air of anyone in the league this year.
Yeah, age is a cruel, cruel mistress. But
He's a gamer. They're still 5-2.
And I think this week we'll get a much better idea on, you know, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, which 40-year-old reigns supreme in the NFC South.
You know, if Michael Thomas can make it to the field, that would be cool.
Well, in one of my fantasy leagues, I had him as my first pick, and we played him once, and that's about it. So I'd like to use him at one point.
Unless he decides to go all Roadhouse at practice again.
Just Chuck Norris all over the place.
and knocks out Emmanuel Sanders in the process or something. Now Alvin Kamara can get 300 touches. Like.
Can he get even more than an old Le'Veon Bell workload?
Yes, he can.
Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is something that I briefly brought up in our chat on Sunday, and we never really talked about it as much as just acknowledging it. The Cincinnati Bengals have only one loss this year that is by that wasn't a one-score game. Everything else was either the tie against the Eagles or 7 or less points. I think all but 2 were 4 or less points. So I guess Liam, we'll start with you. Like, are the Bengals bad, unlucky, or both?
Well, being close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades, Tyler. So I'm not going to give them any brownie points for almost winning games. But what I will say is Joe Burrow has looked pretty good through these games. Like, I think they've got something there. He's in a really tough division, and there's just not a whole lot of star power on that team. They lost their running back. Name's slipping my
Mixon.
Mixon. Yeah, they lost Mixon for a little bit. So I mean that obviously stifles things. I don't think their defense has been anything spectacular. You know what? I'm just not going to give them any brownie points for almost winning games. It's the same thing with the Chargers that one year where the Chargers lost like 10 games by a score less. It's like, so what? go win them. Like, that's why we consider Tom Brady so good, is he wins those clutch moment games. Or, Phillip Rivers has this fourth quarter comeback. Like, that's Hall of Fame stuff. You win games. You play to win the game, as Herm
So,
Edwards.
so am I hearing you say bad?
I'm saying that you play to win the game.
Well, judging by the record, I think Liam's pretty much saying they are bad. Lloyd, are they? Do you think they're unlucky at all?
I don't think they're better than the other teams. I think Joe Burrow is their guy. At least they learned that this year. Zach Taylor will keep his job. I mean, Joe Burrow is sneakily going to have the rookie, most yards, or whatever that statistic is in a season. Oh, he might throw for 4,500 or whatever it is. He's at 22 something now.
Mm-hmm.
But he's right. They're losing. Herbert's losing too. Herbert looks great also, but the Chargers are still a bad team also. Both not good teams.
Seamus.
Yeah, Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's not good. They're a feisty team. I think an interesting way to maybe highlight how well though Joe Burrow's playing, which is really I think what ultimately your question kind of comes to is Joe Burrow the reason they're winning or losing these games? Joe Burrow is fourth in air yards, and therefore his receivers are third in yards before they catch the ball. But they're dead last in yards after reception, which basically is telling me Joe Burrow is throwing into a lot of tight windows where these receivers, as soon as they catch the ball, are just getting dropped. And I think that speaks really highly of Joe's ability to complete the ball, to play under intense pressure. I mean, what's interesting too is Burrow is going to set the rookie record for passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's also, I think, going to break David Carr's record for rookie sacks. I think he's going to take. I think he's in line to break Deshaun Watson's record for quarterback hits in a season. I mean, this dude is basically just standing in 6-man blitzes and just getting corked and dropping dimes week after week.
So I guess the prayer becomes, let's let him not be the new Cam Newton, where years and years of getting battered just leads to large-scale regression, or at least an inability to stay healthy.
He's sturdy. He doesn't run that much, which is good. He's got that going for him.
Yeah, but I mean, I know it's not always his fault, but eventually, he can't even really throw it away that much because with how often they're down, they need the points. So he kind of just needs to soak up the hits, at least for this year.
It's tough being a rookie too. You didn't have an off season, all that stuff. It'll take some time.
Okay.
Liam's got his hot take shades on.
Liam's got his hot take shades. Before we get to those, though, I think it's around that time of the segment. We are through week 8. We are about halfway through the year, and given that it is election week and people are casting their votes, I think it's appropriate for us to cast our votes for just some measly little mid-season awards. I think we talk about some certain categories. Y'all give me some names and just think, why should this guy be in the consideration for this? I want us. You know what? I'll start with the classic one. Just to get the ball rolling. Lloyd, who would you have as your MVP this year, thus far, through 8 games, and why?
Patrick Mahomes. Still Patrick Mahomes. 20 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, come on. I feel like he played so phenomenal the last 2 years that he's just not getting talked about anymore. And I mean, I think Russell Wilson is still the favorite. What did he throw for 4 touchdowns last week? Torched that Niners defense. DK went off and all that. But I mean, I can see Mahomes just continuing to throw 5 every week. I mean, he's not going to get the Jets, but him or I think Derrick Henry's another guy who, like, I just don't think is getting nearly enough credit. Like, even after that Dalvin Cook game, Dalvin Cook is still not leading the NFL in rushing yards. It's still Derrick Henry, and they missed 2 weeks for COVID, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Seamus, who you got as your MVP thus far?
So through 8 games, I think it's Russell Wilson. We've gone over his statistics so many times. I think he is carrying a really bad defense to a really great record. I think the guy to watch out for the end of the season MVP, though, is definitely going to be Tom Brady. If Tampa Bay wins 13 games and is the 1 seed in the NFC, I think you got to really consider it, that he'll eventually get there.
All right. Liam, who you got?
I'm going to have to agree with Seamus. I think it's Russell Wilson, too. I just think it's a perfect story tale. You know, the fact that he doesn't have a single MVP vote somehow. I don't understand how that's even possible. Like, the system is rigged when Russell Wilson doesn't have an MVP vote. He deserves it this year, and I think he's going to get it.
You know, the first 4 weeks, I was really hoping and praying that our boy Joshy could stay in that at least in the conversation to this week, and then it could be like, Russell Wilson versus Josh Allen. That's not the case. Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to be the broken record, but I do agree that Russell Wilson being in that story conversation, he's most likely going to win. I also agree with Lloyd, though, that I would love to see Derrick Henry at least be mentioned and get some votes for that. I mean, his consistency as far as, being this good of a running back in a pass league, I think it's pretty astounding. If he got more touchdowns than he did, not quite LaDainian Tomlinson numbers, but something even remotely close to that, who knows, but I definitely I think at this rate it is going to be Russell Wilson. So, but we will find out. There's still an entire half of a season left to go. Okay, this is I guess, who would you consider? And you could also consider this in your MVP, but I'm hoping this is a little bit different. Who's your under the rug player? Who's your guy that has sneakily been putting together an outstanding season, but just nobody seems to talk about or care about? I guess we'll start with you, Lloyd.
I don't even know who's been sneakily putting together.
How about your boy? Your bad man.
Rodgers? I mean, I think people know that he's been great. I mean, but maybe, I don't know, like maybe Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, he hasn't really turned the ball over very often. I mean, like I said before, potentially comeback player of the year. I mean, Phillip Rivers doesn't suck this year either. He looks better than he has.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like the only person who ever gives, Aaron Rodgers any dues whatsoever is the unofficial Pat McAfee, who just every week talks about how Rodgers should be the MVP, but there's stooges that are running the voting, and he'll never get another MVP for that reason. But
well, he won't get an MVP because he decided he'd rather get paid than have weapons around him. So that's his choice. I mean, he's as good as any of those guys. He just doesn't have any of the weapons they have.
Liam, who's flying under the radar for you?
I think I got to go with DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's just been completely flying under the radar. He's literally leading the league in passing yards or receiving yards. And, with a new quarterback and a new system, everybody was saying that Deshaun Watson is great. And, they gave Hopkins credit too. But to go into a new team and lead the league in receiving yards halfway through the season, I mean, that's really impressive. I really got to give it to him. I didn't think he was all that good for a while, but now I've been proven wrong. He's the real deal. And by the way, second in the league right now, Stephon Diggs. Don't sleep on my man Diggs.
Seamus, who you got?
Derek Carr, quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr does not suck. He won Rookie of the Year his rookie year when he was in Oakland. They had that year with Khalil Mack, him, and Amari Cooper where they went 12-4, but he broke his hand and couldn't play in the playoff game. And ever since then, he really struggled for 2 years. But, I mean, he's playing behind an offensive line that's missed. I think they've missed a combined 62% of their starts from their projected starting five. Their best receiver, Tyrell Williams, has been out for the year. He's basically been throwing the ball to Waller and people who aren't very good at football. And he beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's him. He's the one who beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
In a shootout.
Kept them in every game. I would say their defense is not that good either. I think the Raiders' success, you can attribute a lot of it to Carr. Last week against Cleveland, Baker turned the ball over. Derek Carr didn't. Oakland won, or Vegas won. That's the difference.
That they thought Gruden was going to get rid of. I mean, I feel like the talk of the summer right after the season was they thought John Gruden was going to get rid of him. And John Gruden said, no, I'm going to keep him. I think he's good. And everybody was like, nah, John, come on. And he kept him. He was right.
Yeah, I definitely – somehow I knew you were going to pick Derek Carr, but I think it's, rightfully so. And I'm honestly – and you can argue, he doesn't fly under the radar, but as far as, national conversation, I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara. I think the fact that he's, top 15 in the NFL in both receiving and rushing yards. I mean, he's second in the NFL in receptions. Now, mind you, he also has King Screen on his team, but I think the fact that here's the thing. Anyone who's playing the Saints knows it's coming. They know the screen is coming. They know the check down is coming. They know that, if it's not going to be checked down, they're probably handing it off to Kamara. And he's still putting up the numbers. He's still putting it up. I think he's definitely got a ton of not even potential, just he should be more in the conversation, and he's not. So,
I mean, he's the best 3-down back right now in the league,
without a
in terms
doubt.
of versatility and not knowing what you're going to do out of those sets.
No.
All right.
Derrick Henry, man. He's
Derrick
just.
Henry's not fast, though. Or at least, again,
Yeah, but he can just put anyone on the fucking ground.
I said 3-down back. I didn't say best running back. I just said 3-down back.
If I want to get a first down, I'll take the guy who can just throw somebody on the ground over the guy who can catch.
All right. We could do the normal ones. We could do, rookie. We could do – I was even thinking coach, but I thought of something better. The first player that comes to your mind, the goon of the year, the person who has just been, he's really dropped the ball, just nothing but disappointment, just absolute, laughing stock of a 2020 season so far. Liam, lead us off.
First, you said first person to come to mind, so I just got to go with it. I think it's Jared Goff. I think that's absolutely hilarious. They paid him so much money to just stink. He stinks. I mean, he's so he's at that age where you're supposed to be an MVP candidate for that money with that offense and that defensive line and that coach. I can't believe how not good they are. I mean, they lost to us on kind of a fluke, but they lost to the Dolphins, and that was a real game.
Yep. We didn't imagine that.
Come on now. The only wins that they had before, a couple weeks ago was against the NFC East that everybody considers to be an absolute fluke. This team has one real win. And I think Donald's leading the league. It's not him. Nobody's saying Sean McVay's a bad coach. It's all his fault.
And Hiss Alex wants to remind us that Josh Norman is the goon of the year, which is largely probably attributed to that stiff arm from Derrick Henry. Lloyd, who's your goon?
Can I get
Danny Dimes?
I thought you were Gase. I thought you were Gase.
I would always defer to Gase. I mean, you might think like Gase coached that play, but I'm gonna go Daniel Jones taking a fall. Like the last time I've seen a fall like that was Paul Short, 2013. I see you, Brian Crimmins, if you're watching this. forgot to carry you over the line.
That's... Oh Lord, gotta love it.
How about the same time, the same season, Todd Gurley not being able to stop himself going into the end zone,
Yep.
and Danny not being able to stop himself from falling over.
They need to cancel each other out.
I mean, Todd Gurley's got to be a good one too.
Seamus, who's your goon?
Mike McCarthy, simply for that one comment he had the last or the first Dalton game, where he's like, we unlocked some new analytics things with Andy Dalton. And the NFL Network guy was basically, yeah, I think they just learned how to count to 12.
I got a second one too. I'll leave you with this one. Ben DiNucci, just he thinks he acts like he's like Pat Mahomes if he went to James Madison, trying to throw those shortstop sidearm throws that are just getting them like -3 yards.
We got Juice in the chat who is saying you got Cam Newton for Goon of the Week, which is it. Here's an interesting stat. Through week 8, the Patriots have 2 passing touchdowns. That's pretty dismal.
Well, yeah, and they're both.
But Cam Newton, at the very least, has been more mature than he's ever been. He's he's actually answering questions from the media like pretty respectfully.
Yeah.
I mean, in his wardrobe, you might call him Goon of the Year, but like.
But really, the honest answer is Adam Gase. But like, none of us could pick Gase because like it's just like the lowest of low hanging fruit.
Just
well,
the sheer mention of him, you just got to play the trombone. Just, Adam Gase, we're sorry, but this is for you, buddy.
I mean, when you don't want to pick the guy who looks like he's out of Beetlejuice, you gotta be more creative than that.
That's Adam Gase. Just look
you say Adam Gase 3 times, and Sam Darnold turns over the ball or something. I don't know.
Well, I'll wrap this up by saying mine is another one who a lot of people say it's not his fault, but we've been saying that for a while now. Carson Wentz. Stop turning the damn ball over, man. Interceptions, fumbles, like he has equal passing touchdowns and interceptions, but he also has like 8 fumbles this year. Like as much as we Bills fans rag on Josh Allen for please hold on to the ball, like this guy's just that's 8 lost fumbles, not even like total fumbles. By the way, Juice wants to remind Lloyd to shut up. For his Cam comments. So
the Jalen Hurts dummy package, that is like the most infuriating thing possible in the red zone. Like he's gonna run it. You just know he's gonna run it.
It's like Taysom Hill.
He's like Taysom Hill. Like Taysom Hill, he throws the ball like once a season.
It's literally like Doug Peterson saw that Sean Payton had a Taysom Hill package. Is like, I'll raise you one. I'll put an actually good quarterback in there to just run the ball all the time.
They'll never know what hit them. All right.
Oh.
Okay. So
there's so many bad coaches.
Yeah, like part of me was thinking Bill O'Brien, but he was relieved too early to really be for the whole year.
Like, you got Doug Peterson out here just running the Jalen Hurts package on 3rd down from like the 14 every freaking week. Meanwhile, he's got Eric Bieniemy calling plays with his eyes closed and calling great plays for Mahomes, and he can't even get it. He hasn't been able to get a job for 3 years, and it's like, what the actual heck is going on?
Not yet, Liam. We have one more segment before hot takes. This will be a quick one. Looking ahead, I just want everybody to give me some sort of storyline to be looking out for. Not a hot take. This isn't the hot take, but like just some sort of storyline to watch moving into next week. Don't worry, this one just
I want this one
give me like 30 seconds of like your storyline and a little bit of explanation. Shane.
So Bears-Titans game this week. If this is the panic meter game, one of these teams is going to lose their third game in a row. Whoever that is probably needs to start doing some serious introspection, especially if you're Tennessee and you don't have the benefit of the bye and you talked all that smack after those Bills and whoever they beat the week after. When you talked all that smack, and all of a sudden you get you lose 3 in a row, you might lose your division lead. It's like, hey, let's get some stuff together here. And if you're the Bears, well, Matt Nagy might get fired anyway. So I don't know if you're really going to get there.
Lloyd, what you got?
I know we talked about this earlier, but I'm going Cam Newton thirst trap game against the Jets here. You get your likes, Cam Newton. I'm starting you this week. I trust you, boy.
Liam.
Shout out to my boy Kurt Homiser for tweeting out this stat that the Seattle Seahawks have been giving up the most yards to receivers by a large margin to anybody else in the NFL. I want to see Stephon Diggs break 150 yards this week, and I think he can do it.
All right. I was pretty much just going to say, like, I think it's going to be interesting. Tonight's game, Packers 49ers, like, obviously I'm not calling anything, but I'm curious to see, are the Niners going to be able to put together a decent game? I know they've got some injuries right now, but
they own Green Bay.
Exactly. And yeah, I think Rodgers is like 4-6 career against San Francisco.
Yeah,
like,
well, Kyle Shanahan, they thumped them twice last year.
Yeah, I don't think you could fit the amount of injuries the 49ers have on the unit I work at. Okay, I don't think they would fit on my hospital's floor, bro.
Okay, but Mullins is not terrible. Hasty is like pretty good. Ayuk can't play, which sucks. So with Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel isn't playing. Kyle Shanahan, people call him the scheme lord. Let's see what he cooks up here. He at least knows what to do against Rodgers.
All right.
With what defense? With what players?
Liam, it's time.
All right,
gentlemen. Ladies, gentlemen, this is the moment that anyone who watches the show is here for. This is the only actually entertaining part of the show. It is time for our hot takes of the week. I'm gonna do myself a solid here. I never lead these things off, and I think for once I'm going to lead this one off. Nothing too crazy. Before we go off, last thing Epsi wants to add: Aaron Rodgers going against his potential next team tonight? Oh, we'll find out.
California.
All right.
Let's go home.
Girls,
I
they're
think,
undeniable.
And we talked about this earlier. If there's gonna be a week where the Jets get a win, it's gonna be this week. Cam Newton's confidence is at a low.
Cam Newton thirst trap game, bro. He's gonna
Bro.
He's gonna get so many
I'm playing this air horn over and over again. Cam Newton is not going to show up against the Jets. Sam Darnold is somehow going to find a way against J.C. Jackson, maybe Stephon Gilmore if his knee is better. You know what? I'm calling Jets beat the Patriots by 7 this weekend.
Bill Belichick has way too much self-respect for that.
You would say the same about the Bills, but we beat them.
I wouldn't say the same thing about the Bills.
All right, Liam, you got your aviators on. Let's see it.
that's right. I'm 1-1 with my picks. I'm dripping confidence at the moment, and I gotta make one prediction, and that is that the Dallas Cowboys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers with either Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert, who has, according to Wikipedia, probably one of my favorite awards ever given out. It is the 2008 Built Ford Tough Class 4 Texas High School Football Player of the Year. It's like a mouthful, but holy cow. If you're the Built Ford Tough Texas Football Player of the Year any year, you're gonna win some games. I think Dallas Cowboys beat the Steelers. That's my pick.
Yo, Garrett Gilbert is one of the great college bus players of all time, actually. He went to Texas and was like supposed to be like the heir apparent to Colt McCoy. And he was just awful for 4 years. And then or 3 years. And then he transferred to SMU and was like amazing for one season at SMU. And then sucked again in the NFL and like couldn't latch on anywhere. The fact that this guy's gonna start a game is like at once like the realization of a ton of potential, but also like why is he starting this game? Because I do think it's gonna be Gilbert, not Rush.
All right, well, Seamus, since you're indulging us with such a mouthful, what do you got?
Yeah, Pat Mahomes is throwing for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Carolina Panthers this week.
That's not that hot. Whose hot dog's hotter?
450 yards is a lot. It's a
I
lot.
know. I'm just
5 touchdowns.
450 and 5 yards, by the way, that would be I think that's like a 30-something point fantasy game at quarterback, and it would be the best fantasy game at quarterback this year, too.
Well, fine. I'll give you the air horn as your hot take. There you go. Lloyd, what do we got?
Also, Carolina's
Nicky
good.
Mullins, perfect passer rating. No, I'm just kidding. That's not my hot take.
Hold on. We're going to talk about that? You're getting the sad trombone on that one.
No, the Titans are playing the Bears, right? That's what Seamus was saying. Yep. I like my hot take here. We get to see what happens when an unstoppable force moves against an immovable object. We got Derrick Henry is going to get strip sacked by Khalil Mack.
I like it. I like that a lot. Holy cow. Yeah, the pride and joy of UB. All right.
UB's about to get another first-round pick, I think, this year, too. I actually legitimately think that what's his name, Patterson's going to be a first-round pick this year.
They say he's like the 5th best running back in college. At least that's what they had in the preseason projections.
We got him third is for draft eligible guys.
Yeah, one of the guys.
And they beat NAIU. They beat NAIU. That's pretty
It's
cool.
him, Etienne, and I don't remember who the other one is, but
AT&T 5G or whatever the Clemson his name
he's
is.
been there forever. It feels like.
We don't talk about Clemson anymore. They just cut their track program.
Oh.
No, he's got track and cross.
Clemson had a track program.
Once upon it, not anymore.
They started there.
All right.
60-meter guy. He was really good.
Oh, what's up?
Clemson had a really good 60-meter guy. Who was like one
I almost said
NCAA.
Christian Coleman.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name either. That was around the time with John Sonic Boom Teeters, but that's a whole other podcast. So.
Epsy, just to remind everyone on Juice's take, is that Arizona is not going to crush the Dolphins, meaning that the Dolphins are a real team this year.
I wouldn't call that Justin's a hot take. I would call that just like a good, a good projection of what's
we will
going to
give that
happen
the
this weekend.
lukewarm take of the week.
Yeah, my pick is to have an unbeaten team lose to Garrett Gilbert and or Cooper Rush.
Mine is does Derrick Henry. When's the last time Derrick Henry has had a forced fumble?
And who
Has
better
that
than the
happened?
all-time?
Has that happened in the
When
NFL?
he decides to fumble it.
Who better?
Jamie, pull up the answer.
Who better than
Where's
the
Jamie?
NCAA all-time leader in forced fumbles, Mr. Khalil Mack? How about some action? Woo! All right. Gentlemen, do we have any closing statements before we start wrapping up?
Pat Smith was the worst Monday Night Football game I've seen in a long time.
Good luck to Buffalo Track and Field. Get yours this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We got some action this weekend, don't we, Liam?
That's right. I won't be there, but I'll be rooting for the guys. I think they're going to do well.
We expect
Conference
live results,
champs.
the entire
Get those
live updates every step of the way.
conference
That's right.
champs get those buys to nationals.
That's
Pretty big stakes
Got the
this
first
year.
round
It's crazy.
Wait, you get that's confirmed the rule. It's if you win your conference, it's an auto buy.
Yeah, you get a buy to the
Well, we have to
NCAAs
play
in March.
the NFC East, but yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta play the Bucks.
Eastern.
All right. Well, and I guess
Oh, literally,
my last
week.
statement is that guess what? We're alive. We survived an election day that everyone thought was gonna result in widespread death. It hasn't happened yet, so fingers crossed.
Demonetized.
Oh, can I say one final thing here?
Oh, dear God.
Everybody was posting about the election the last couple of days, and we get the rare Brian Crimmins Instagram post on the day of the election talking about how everybody was doubting Tom Brady.
That's gotta be the most criminal thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Freaking zebra, bro.
B Crim, we love you. We can't wait to you hear this shout out.
You got Crimmins. We need you on the show. We need your presence on the show, man.
Well, an entire hour of just stroking Tom Brady's ego.
Yeah,
right.
that's not the only thing Brian's stroking at Tom Brady.
Well, that's all we'll talk about, for the sake of not getting demonetized. So, with that, thanks everyone for joining us on this special post-election version of Highly Disputed, the Lloyd and Liam NFL show. Thank you, Baby Yoda, for joining us. Hopefully next week, Juice will be back. And
with
all that, we'd like to wish you all a good night, and we'll catch you next time. Go Bulls.